samangayande boyande soyo deyanda gayande gayande bayray gayande bayray samangayande moyande soyo deyanda gayande gayande bayray gayande bayray samangayande moyande soyo ngere tongda nyanjo jivanda midan nebe jendan temban lujian bezon sojo taji dele ayo sai chimbe Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it Bodhisattva motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. With that kind of at least contrite bodhicitta, altruistic motivation, we should participate in this Bodhisattva's discourse on Pranjana Paramita, or the perfection of wisdom discourses. So just to remind you where we are in this Bodhisattva avatar, or A Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life by Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva. We are in chapter 9, and so we will talk about the philosophy or the viewpoint of Chittamatrins. So we are looking at stanza 17, and those of you who have Stephen Batchelor's translation of the guide, we are on page 141, and then any other book, stanza 17. So first, we would like the first two lines of the stanza kind of presents Chittamatrins or mind-only's assertion or standpoint. Remember that Chittamatrins assert that things exist truly. Things are truly existent. Tembardruba in Tibetan. That's a key term. Okay? And so when they hear mathematicians or the middle way philosophers say that all things are just like an illusion, Yuma, Maya, okay? So then they said that means that perceptions are illusion-like. Perceptions are like illusion, which means the object perceived also should be like an illusion, in which case they said they really don't exist at all, right? So Chittamatrins feel like mathematicians are saying that all phenomena are like an illusion, and translating that into their understanding is that now you're saying that nothing exists at all, right? Perceptions are illusion, they don't exist, and then objects of the perceptions don't exist, but they are illusion.
What this is, same person that country disagree. Chirumena, she, Yumena, this is Hibayama, Shimena, anyway, Langdo Namsha, Gangala, do this, the same Debamena, any using Debamena, same hair charity, same manner, any Yumeva charities. You the same that those are in the Jora, this is the same Demateva Mena, any you, Sujalas of a male charity. This is any true to the USA and the Namsha Tamji.
In other words, what the Chitta Martins and Mind Only School are saying that, if you say that objects do not exist truly, that means they couldn't exist at all. And if objects don't exist, how could there be subjective perceptions of those objects? So those perceptions wouldn't exist at all, right? Which means you are completely destroying the whole presentations of subject and object, or the objects and subjective perceptions. So which means then you have to say that forms don't exist, sounds don't exist, smells don't exist, so nothing exists at all, right? If you say they do not exist truly, then that they can't exist at all, which means there shouldn't be any perceptions of minds existing that perceives them, so you are saying that nothing exists at all.
Shivani Gozuni Gavada, Dile Gava, Dele Jumani, Shed Judmeva Gava, Tayane, Tayano, Dendi, Deva Gava, Taboni, Kanze, So Gavani, Kanze, Sumza, Jeto, Mindu, Chido Mindu, Janang, She, Dendra, Dendi, Mewanza. Juju Suzoji Shiruton No, did not know that the Nashidan Yajade Shido did no, the Tribisher, no, the Majo and Dinani Suzo Meva, Suzo Dember, Majo and Jeravi, Chigi. Lola Suzo Demi de Juguela Suzo Sungja Tonde Nama Jode Mena Tiu Yu Shiva Soya So Chichi de Make the Bija Yumata so we share that Gozuga or the dinner Tilega Gozusana. Sudonga Nashi Pai Kaya des Tesi, that silver thing, and the Shido Mena Shido Dema Mena, Karza Shido Mena, Namji Dema Mena, Shido Sugmi, Shido Sugmena Sugi, Namji Shagma, Shed Namji da Suzo, Duja to Shagri, and the Namji Dema Mena, and Suzo, Shiru Yuzu Dema too much, Gozungara. Or the Tadana part of Gorva. The Chiru told you to Madonna Shiba de Doina in a Casa. I did what Shiba de Dosatan, you have to do Shiba de Mana, Shiba made to Mena. She was a Chiru Yuda Sungja me, Sungja Shiba Mena Chiru Mega Meda. In Vietnam, shot have zero is a part of Kaya goes in you and got one so days.
So actually, I think we are looking at stanza 16 there, more like. And so now we know the standpoint of the Chitta Martins, right? They're saying that if you say that things don't exist truly, which means objects don't exist truly, that means perceptions couldn't exist truly. So basically, nothing exists at all. So you are destroying the whole presentation of subject and object. Yeah. And mathematicians or middle way philosophers are putting forth counter argument in Tibetan called Rigpa Goksung. It's like a parallel counter argument. The argument is very similar to the way they have put forward. So which is that in your case, you said there are no externally existent objects, right? But you assert that perceptions are truly existent. Yeah? And if perceptions are truly existent, they could not be dependent on anything at all. But there is no perception that does not depend, right, on others. So from that point of view, right, then the perceptions wouldn't exist for you, which means then the objects wouldn't exist at all. There are no perceptions. So therefore, right, so you are also destroying, right, that the presentation of subject and object, right? So this is like a counter argument which is parallel to the Chittamatra argument there.
What did no Gozunga did Simza the Shiva Dendobene, Shiva Medu, Shiva Mena, you made any Namja take mercy. Or Tipa Dada, and the children know your Maris. Children know you know anything. Shiva usually retain Shiva Dendro, Shiva Mena, Dendobene, Shiva. You say Shiva Meva, T. You Maris, the T. Guy in it. Take me says Paka or Gozunga, what she or Gozunga was in
So Geshe is basically re-explaining what is called a parallel counter-argument there. So just as Chittamatrans have argued with the Madhyamikans that if you say that objects do not exist truly, then subjects cannot exist truly, so therefore nothing exists at all, you are destroying the whole presentation of subject and object. So Madhyamikans are putting forth counter-arguments parallel to them. They said, well, you know, how about this? You assert that there are no externally existent objects, but you assert that perceptions are truly existent. Okay? And so these perceptions could not be dependent upon their objects, right? There are no truly existent, there are no externally existent objects. But there is no such thing as truly existent perceptions because they exist dependently, right? They couldn't exist on their own. So which means for you also, right, there cannot be perceptions. So without perceptions, there cannot be objects as well. And so it's the same thing, just like you are arguing with us, right? The same goes back to you, you know.
What did that when you did that? Some of us in music and around your smoke and a demo to the because almost in the demo to a chair, my level, I said, the muddy machine, Tico and two or Tico did so in the this was the sense of a show of any Shiva did Garza de Shido Mena in it did not Shiva me shouting, Timena. You the music or Shaji take the middle shadows. Tagisms were to at the party, but you were done with it. What it is.
So always remember that the arguments taking place between Chittamatrans, Mind-only school, and the Madhyamikans, or Prasangika Madhyamikans in this case, is that Chittamatrans believe that subject and object truly exists, right? Subject is truly existent. Whereas they say there are no externally existent objects. Now, Madhyamikans are saying there is nothing exists truly, whether it is an object or is a subject, right? So it is, their standpoints are mutually exclusive standpoint, as we can say. Yeah? And so now Madhyamikans are telling them that you assert truly existent perceptions, but then you say there are no externally existent objects. So it means so there are no perceivers of objects there. Are you with me? And so in which case those perceptions couldn't exist. What are they perceiving? So if these perceptions don't exist, then objects don't exist. So therefore, whatever you are arguing with us, it goes back to you in the same way. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
It says the Madhyamikas are asserting the true existence of external objects. That's what they're saying. So, and that's what Geshe said. That, but that's not true. Geshe said that according to Chittamatrians, external objects truly exist.
Right. but they accept there are no externally existent objects, right?
Yeah, but they truly exist.
Okay.
So according to the Madhyamikas,
I'll ask Geshe to
yeah.
clarify those two things,
Yeah.
right? That might help. Quran this go again. Tanda son the Quran kada tada member stus or again. Di ya che ko me do again. Kan sana semzam ba gi yu the yu chen yi ga temba du de sla ro again.
유 치료 통도 예시입니다.
Yu temba du yo lo mar be.
유 데버 자나 데버 저시 뭐 데버 저시 뭐 데버스 데버 저시 뭐 라몬 예시야.
Ale sheba ke temba du rangen lius. And chida yu the temba du yo so
유 치료 통도 예시야. 심에 다니면서 저 유코로 로지 유디 심에 나와서 차카 데스고다. 그것이 로그들이 봐나 그게 너 까고 리그라 까고 니네 봤다 하셔죠.
No.
어때 있어 소디 로그 살고 저 그런 필요가 말라.
Ale jana kata yu temba du scaling mar again.
라
Senza ba yu temba du yo slo mar again.
유 다다 수소 데버 간데스가
So temba du yo la ro.
수소 데버 유가가 데버 데마시 두마로.
All right. But
지다 치료 도도 쇼시아바데 치료 유 맥바시는 거서 베네 소도 미시게 다테네 나시제가 되게 많으시 다즈가가 싫어파 우드 파트셔 주리스
no.
그래서 뭐도 되는 거 좀 심한 비즈니스 파파드 비 까고 나기래요
No.
너디디 심한 파소는 티네스 요 말아
No.
티치가 있어
Then again, then that's been a mixture of su the chile thunder do su chi yom mares ro again. Then the su zia the karso sem ki pa tak sho jis res ro again. In a di temba do yo mar.
sem그파 우도 초셔 주지
Sem ki pa su sha jo ki su the temba do yo mar again.
내가도 뭐 치료 유가가 심바다 뭐예면 뭐저 그게 치료 미게 송샤 소을 때 미시께시라 이제 말이지 어디서
Ale ta me again di ta ngara le sab cha ma sa no par so. Ken sho again. Su tha thi ro reksa de yo lo go ro sam za ba. Ye ba de ge de chiden de mes.
치동
In a ye ba de ge de temba do yo go. Temba do yo go mar.
데버저 소 데버저 어디 다 소만 있대 소 데버저 좀 샤이가
La.
뭐뭐저 데버저 다 첨부 데버저 스네 데버 뭐저 그 샤이에서는 라운드에 데버 뭐저 런자 되게 데로 있어요.
거기 도바디 돼 있는 사람은 생산면도 영화용으로 된거 주 건다 대박 먼저 써야죠.
Ah ne.
거 도바디 돼 있는 사람이.
아
거기 나서 생산면도 영화용으로 랑게 생긴 주로 된거 주세. 아니 건다 대박 먼저 써야죠.
이네
거 도바디 돼 있는 사람이.
그 더워서 그래서
건다 대박 먼저 나요. 아 자기 거 거야 돼 보이는 사람 주탕주 대박 생산면도 주탕주 대박 줘봐도 거기 거 있는 사람이.
All right.
주탕주 대박 줘보면 누구 상고에 사람.
Ale
건다 대박 먼저 봐도 왔어. 영화용으로 대박 주고 건다 대박 코 상가에 들이.
뭐그 세서 데버저 있고 말이야.
no so.
코티 코티도 하게.
I don't know so. Okay.
아이 그거 있지 말지.
So Jijana again kind of this show you right. Okay, let me clarify that maybe this might help, right? Because Geshe is helping here why your question came up with, right? I think if I in my translation somewhere said that according to Tibetan doctrines all phenomena are truly existent, that's where we have to be careful. It's not, right? So what Geshe is saying is that according to Tibetan doctrines, right? They said form, sound, smell exists. They do not exist as externally existent objects. They are in the nature of their perceptions, right? What you are perceiving is what you have projected from this side. Okay, that's right. So they are not saying that all phenomena are truly existent because they have three categories of phenomena, right? As Geshe started to remind me. Is that what you're getting at, right? Okay, good. Again. Yes. That is again. That is too slow.
어디서 우리 건지 제가 거기가 리바찍고 다다들 자기 대조하게 했는데 시도면은 시도면은 대집에 힘하면 되고 매우래도 우리 제가 자기 되게 말씀 고중시로 그래서 파티는 에 시도 유명이나 가서 매들 남이 다니면 남이면 야티면 시로 돈 좋아이나 야 자기 되게 말씀 지 찍고 시거라 어디야 되려다 단지반이 가면 랭가와도 집에 랭 ki rangri gaba ta pa chik tang sa chu chu do te ni len ni she ga me len gaba dang ta de ge da she ta chiwe len rangri gaba se rangri sa de da yo ke sa ba do she da de sim zam ba da jo ja do ge ma ba rangji ba de rangri sa de this is what da so kar she na this so thing do thing ye da ye ma de de da yu yu是我送了，是不是？我说你嘛，他们那没得在听嘛，龙巴的听还要嘛啦？听全部眼睛通过了啦。我的那些所有那个都是写是就听个多，听的是起码是眼睛我们通是手中是听个，就是我们通个起码这个手中的手术的药的这些药是让人啥子，我的对个现在。第这边连让人搞不，我第这但让人现在第这考虑，起码收入开始收入这样的，这样的，就是这个让人是。
So I think now that part goes to stanza 17, because earlier, the argument called parallel counter arguments, and now the next one, in order to sort of defend the position. Chitta Martins assert what is called rangrik in Tibetan, means self-cognition or apperception, like kind of seeing oneself, right? It's called rangrik, self-perception. Rangju bege rangri dugu sum bege. Rangju bege rangri dugu. Yeah, so some of the Sevatandika Madhyamikans, Yogacharya Sevatandika Madhyamikans also accept self-cognition just like Chitta Martins. But there is a Southern Sevatandika Madhyamikan, they don't. So anyway, that doesn't matter. So there's a part of Sevatandika Madhyamikans who accept self-cognition as well. Okay? So what they're saying that, how do they say there has to be, or there is rangri, self-cognition or apperception, because we are able to have recollection, like of what we experienced in the past, right? If you saw a blue sometime, then you can recall it, right? Oh, I saw a blue color of something, right? They said if there is no such thing as self-cognition or apperception, then we cannot recall our past experience at all. Okay, so that's the Chitta Martins' another assertion or standpoint.
What is that? Is sometimes there's a down that's it. Omabe and Karza Chiru told me and it is Hiva Young, didn't Ganga Meva Tadu, but the till land Chiru told the Yomar did use Henda your race. Use Henda careers and no Ganga the same power of part two of this. The Lord, they papa, the whoop legacy. 우리가 내가 땅에 줘서 어디 싸워도 대투요 어디 was 싫어 돈 줘서 요 말씀 어디 내가야 어디게 지키겠다.
How this assertion has come about is that earlier, when Madhyamikans agree with them, because Chitta Martins say there are no externally existent objects, right? So if there are no externally existent objects, there could not be perceptions of such objects at all, right? And so Chitta Martins are responding to that. They say, yes, there are no externally existent objects, but objects do exist in some other way, all right? Then they said, what is that some other way we are talking about? They said, well, objects exist as projections of the subjective perceptions. That's how it exists. And the example Geshe given is if we project a blue light on the wall, right, we will perceive that. But that blue light is just a projection, right, from here. So like that, although we say things don't exist externally, but they do exist in some other way, so they exist as projections of the mind. So actually, they are in the nature of the mind, perceivers. Right? This is how Chitta Martin said.
Bodhisattva, that sometimes they carry this idua. The lenga was Kong say using sim thingy. Yumata Suzo Yanshin de Noina, T. Say, you the tree, Shiva Kongi, Konjulo Kongi, Tonde. Tongshi, Madrabi Shiva Yang, you Kongi, Kongi, Tonde, Tongsa Tongshi, Soso Madrabi Shiva was. You tell Kongi. Rangri saya tongsa soso maju saya dere da yu di hije hibe dangi isigwa kani hiba pa che ji hibe ko dang zhe ji ma zu ko yuje yu du lo yo ma hibe dang zhe re se o dere kani o tisu da karsa现在有的现在去路通的要么hibe because so to show is what the law what the law that the gawa is there the gawa is kong the yuje sim the you must so ye rashi na ina the yu the che shiva kong ji lo kong tong de tong ji ma zhe be shiro shiva yang na yu kang yu jie kang tong de tong sa tong xi so so ma zhe ge xie xie wa wo si wo de da rong ri sa yu si la de da rong ri sa de yo ma de yo ka zhe ha gu ri si wo de ka zhe rong ri yo ma de sem sem lu ji rong ri ga ma sia de ka ji xi ba ji de ge si wo ro ka sa xi ba rong tong ma si po me be zhe xie mo ka ri so 그게 정말서 소도 말이지. 어떤데 가래 즉 대단노야 소소소 제도 말이야 저로 어떻게 소리 정정서야 말이지. 어떻게 해서 해와다.
So as Krishna explained before, that Chitta Martin say that there are no externally existent objects, but objects do exist in some other way, and in other words, they exist more like reflections of the perception themselves, and they are in the same nature, in the nature of their cognitions, isn't it? And so now the mathematician says, then how can you say, right, that the cognitions are perceiving, right, the objects you said they don't exist externally, right? What can validate that? What can validate, right, the perception of the objects you are asserting they don't exist externally? Yeah? Because there is no duality. Because you said what the cognition sees, it sees itself, its own reflection kind of thing, right? There are no subject and object, you mean? There are no externally existent objects, so there is no different object per se. They are in the nature of the perceiver, so it's just like non-duality. So you cannot talk about perceiver and perceived in this particular case. So what can validate the perception of whatever you're talking about? So this is where they said, well, this is what we call self-cognition, rangri, and that's so the mathematician said, well, there is no such thing as self-cognition or rangri, and many examples are given. One which comes in the next stanza is just as the blade of a razor or a sword cannot cut itself, right? Just like as however athletic you are, you cannot ride on your own shoulder kind of thing, right? So there is no such thing as mind seeing itself. So there is no self-cognition.
What did that? Carson did talk about the carrying you the hibe that you said the you the using got chick part of red or the tell you about the dongo. Chick part of any person the you the using not got them due to race. What this is.
So for mathematicians, when they the way they are arguing is this, like Chitta Martin's claim that there are no externally existent objects, what the cognitions are seeing are basically the reflections of themselves, and those reflections are in the nature of the cognitions themselves, right? So there are no different entities here. It's the cognitions, isn't it? So there is no subject and object here. And so what can validate, right, these cognitions perceiving objects which are the same as themselves, right? And that's where the Siddha Martin said, well, call the cognition, self-cognition, perception, wrongly. And Madhyama can say, well, that's not feasible.
Oh, the that you some long gaba, regret gaba was gaba, wrong juicy gaba was that the sashi something was that long gaba and that they don't do ganga somewhere. Chiru years a maboyarwa, long gabas. Regret gaba said that Chiru yogu was it. You do you say how to go take Gaza Gamas?
No, sure.
In the wrong Dushi Gabas. Sometimes to Dushi, you hear that you say, what they go at it. Or today, such a song is or this or that.
No, sure. So Madhyamikans use sort of like a three-pronged arguments, right, to refute Chittamantrin's standpoint. And three-pronged is, first one is, through scriptural quotation, right? And the Madhyamikans say there are many sutras in which Buddha talked about how there are external objects, right? You are saying there are no external existent objects, so you are contradicting what Buddha has said in many sutras, right? That's one way refuting them. The second one is through reasoning, right? Because there are, as Buddha said, there are external objects and there are perception. There is such things as subject and object. There is a duality, and so that refutes your kind of non-duality, right? Assertion there. And the third one is whatever reasons Chittamantrin put forward. So those reasons are refuted. So like a three-step process here, right?
Yeah. What is his Gabo, Rang Juji Gabo, Tomo and Jigdes, so Gamba he dance, Gamba he dance. Tell us this, Kong Tong Chivana, Rang don't get sense of Nare. Hiba de la Kashidi. Kashiri Shoban, Suin Namjendang. Kanang Shoba, Zibe Nambajan, Ni Yabes, Name Suin Namjendang. Kanang da corner Shoba, Zibe Nambajan, Ni Yabes, Nama Suin Namajendang. Kanang da corner soba zibe namachi yeves ngamani hiri hibatang shiman rori imbes ti hibatang jela migdes teyo munzi tawli hibala roni kitengdes yuji yungoso jawala temedu munzi roni Muzi tawi shiva rangi ni tengdi yungoso jia la teme de muzi rangi muzi tawi shiva rangi ki tengdi de ngoso jia le teme de muzi rangi la ina nebe goni se ra Rani Nyansu Nyungkenji, Ranrik Yodo Hinde, Tim Tirida, Shiva Gangala, and the Yuri Shajiga, no Yuri Shani, yes. This is that she Yuri Babana, make so Tong aside this she Yuri Sashi. That's so Tong, Hakoyak, Nog, Mishikora, Tanya, the Ranrik, Kusu, Tongia. Rangri is Nangdani, Kashida Nangdani, but deal the Rangri Nangdasi said that that Muji the tell 시베다 이 군지 용화 수체기 템베 체기스도 어디 팀마시는 주제 가려서는 요 군지디 그런 뭐뭐 도도도 그런 뭐뭐 예배 시바 그런 학구베나 요에는 게 되는 뭐 통해서 되는 제밖에 더 말하시 어디에다 그 제밖에 안 당분 그 뭐뭐 통해 내가서 군지 또왜 시바지다 뭐뭐 또 시바지 예배 다도 되래서就是我这个的工资，你看这个了，那工资他们到没了，就是我这个的嘛，这工资这个嘛也是。
So Chittamatrins are saying that a cognition or perception has dual aspects, right? One aspect, it focuses externally on external objects, and the other aspect, it focuses internally on the subjective experience. So they said a cognition has a dual aspect, so one focuses externally and one focuses internally. Okay, so that the one that focuses internally within, that's what we call self-cognition or a perception rangri. Okay, and if there is no such self-cognition, then we would not be able to remember or recollect anything. That's their position. Yeah, for example, they said, well, how can we say that? Well, I remember seeing a blue color yesterday, right? They said if there was something, if there's no a perception or self-cognition, then we cannot recall, right? I saw it. We can see that, well, we might recall the blue, but the perception of blue cannot be recalled, right? And so they said, why we are able to recall both, right? The blue color object and the perception of the blue is because of the self-cognition, okay? Because the mind has this dual aspect, one focus on the blue and one focus on the perception of the blue. So that's why, right, we're able to recollect it. That's what the mind-only school are saying here.
What is that? The Jigdegi Gobu, that a long gas at it. Jide go Sanjiro, Jide Gobu Jang. Zuna Rambuchi Shu do so less. Chu Devata Simroni, Gironi, you know, never Sugi, Sugi Simroni, Medonshi, so the Shigi, Shidana, Ritin, so the Rang Jija, Juji, Tadedi, Majobi, Shidate Perna, Mijeva Tishindu. Yi Rani Rani Shogamadam Tagi Dutara Meton Ko Sheso Tedarian Dole Kete Migbayang Hiena Simjang Hina Sim Ye Insu Joros. What did I that Shido Yuva Songa Dot Long Jungle? Because Shidong Yomar Zero, Shido the Jigden Dol Tisonga, Shidong Yuva Songa, she. Tigon Shiba Rani Rigomar is still Pecker and the Regis that no, so to I but may power be Shabu Kini, so travel and I depends on Shiba Suria, Yomar, what is it?
So now we're clear with Chittamatrins' position, right? How cognition has a dual aspect, that one focuses externally, for example, like blue, the other focuses internally on the perception of the blue, and that part is called self-cognition or perception. Yeah, that's why we're able to recall it. And so as we said, by three ways Madhyamikins are refuting this position. Number one is through scriptural authority, quotations, right? So they said that in a sutra called Tsongna Rinpoche Do, Crown Jewel Sutra, Buddha stated it clearly, right, that mind cannot see itself. Okay? And the examples given is that of however sharp a razor blade or a sword is, it cannot cut itself, however sharp it is. Right? The other example Geshe has given earlier is that however athletic, agile you are, you cannot ride on your own shoulder, right? That's not possibility. So that's one way of refuting the Chitta-Martin's viewpoint, because Buddha said in sutras there are external objects, right? But you are saying there are no external objects, right? So that contradicts your viewpoint there.
Well, this is that simple.
So where Chitta-Martins assert that cognition has an aspect that internally focused, which we call self-cognition, and that remembers the perception of external perception of object, let's say, not external object, they don't accept that. But those who do not accept self-cognition, Madhyamikan, they said there's no such thing as self-cognition, because Buddha said mind cannot see itself, but still we could recollect it, we can remember it, okay? And the way we remember is based upon the relationship between object and that perception, isn't it? Based upon the relationship between an object and its perceiver, we are able to recollect it. When we recollect the object, simultaneously we recollect its perception. It's not like, okay, first we remember the object, and then the next we have to remember the perception. It's not like that, right? When you remember the object, then simultaneously you also remember the subjective perception. Why? Because they are related, right? Because of that relationship.
What is it? Because you're also no, the Migba Kang, but the same, Shilaton, you're the penal region of the taking the long Langashi was a Shedara region. Still some symptoms on us. Usually, they were mean. Wrong, doing it. Dina Yango, Richard Riki, Dobata, Tadi maybe. Tadi maybe. Tadi maybe. Z. Tadi maybe. Number Swan. Jungse Jang maybe. Still the Kang they don't ready so around the Java. Tawada, Sheza the Timidi, Semi Sheza Java, Tawa so yes. Gabazedo, so this young the Hakona Bear, the Seomartis, that Rangi said, but the Munzi Mihiro, the Munzi Mihirin get it, Munzi Mihiron. Rang the loss Yomar Zora.
No.
So that's a result is a Tade Yomar is Chigre Dora.
No.
Chig the Chaji Mara.
No.
Chaji is Tade Gorva. Chig Chaji Yamara.
No, so.
This way.
No, so.
Is the Cheba Java Zanji, same River Zangia, the Yomar is Leo Maris. Rang said, Person, Kora Rigade, Kora Tade Plan, wasn't Mihido, still. The Muslim the laws the result is Tade and the result is Nagatimara. What is what to go you Shima Chig Dog, some like
No, so. So why, it is not feasible to have self-cognition or perception wrongly? Is, for example, right, if we are talking about visual consciousness, cognition, perceiving blue, right, and Chitta-Martin said there is a self-cognition, right, that perceives the visual perception of a blue. But then that visual perception and the self-cognition are of the same entity, isn't it? If they're of the same entity, they are not different entities. They are non-dual, isn't it? So when things are non-dual in that nature, then we cannot talk about what we call perceiver and perceived, and act of perceiving something, right? For something, there has to be perceiver and what's perceived, and the act of perceiving agency. The things have to be different, isn't it? So that's not feasible. That's what the Madhyam beings are talking about here.
Oh, that is some long ago, the regret of Karza. Rangi Jubji Gabo, Stadamboni Jide, so Gangwashi, then tell us, this is a Kangchi, Kangi Tong Chi Shibana, Rangi Dugin, the sense of so Nari, Shiva de la Kashir Choba, Sumena Bajana, Kanan Choba, Zibena Baji, Ye, Noma Shibada, Shimara in base. Ti Shiva Tabji make this, Taya, Munzita Shiva Rani, Tengdi, Yunguso, Jivala, Temi, Munzi Rani, La Nina Nebe Tsui, Gone. The Rani Yans Yongi, Rari Yodo, he Deodo. Ten Medete, Zidin, Tigombo, Sooner Reboshi Dolly. Karsa, or Tisha Karsa, or the wrong river, river summary, result is a Tadi Meva. Tick that Tadi when the check is you shall Tadi when you shall. Said result is Tadi, Daiji, and result is taken so these are Tayoga. So result is also your maris. When the Koran, the Koran around the yard.
So basically, Geshe is trying to clarify the same thing here. The Madhyam is saying that your standpoint and presenting this self-cognition Rangi is not working. Basically, why? Because for anything to perceive anything, right, the things have to be different. Perceiver and what's perceived and the act of perceiving. But in the case of self-cognition, you are saying that the self-cognition of visual perception of blue is they're of the same entity, right? They're not different entities, and so that does not work. So we cannot talk about what is perceiving what. The act of perceiving is not possible with things that are of the same entity or the nature. But still, Chitta Martins claim like, no, I told you that cognition has two aspects. The one that focuses externally, we call it other perception, Shinri, and then one that focuses internally, we call it self-perception, right? And that's how this thing. But the self-perception part is not working because of non-duality, right? There is no such an object. So what is perceiving what? You know?
What is it? Then Jungsi may kill what the religious also will hear the medi. Nibali is a pegama, Tongama, Tombolini, Mame pegama, he pegama, Tomboni Shitaso, Kamba she thing. Tell a short mama nare, Rangrim, you de Pessidar, Mame, Rang over Rangi, over Nikayan. Don't have a saw she was Hindi. She was young, round the Hinika river shield of Hindi, Pemor, Bedete, Pena, Shedana, Mamma Rang saw show in the Mende. Mamma same cushion. Good young same shadow. Mamma same go with Jude coins, which is Mamma said a mube, he driver, Jebonui. Marmela said, Mungu Pumbatabu. Seja Mubami said, Tundole, never tene, Mutinte, Munguna Pumbata. Tell her, my Madon said. Mene Ranshi Sejini, Yesu, Yana, Mame Ransi do Gona, Mumbeja, Rani Jogola, Timide de Congressman, Mumba Munji Driba Mary said, Kede Mumba Mube Driba, Juno Mumba so hui give the Mumba Medon Hindi. Mumba Medon Talos. Today, Tahili, Mamma changing Kede no Sikuna. Mumba around the Rangi Jivajo Tezumi. Kisuma Hiva Taro. What is a Hajida? Simsama Shibarang Seva Bell, the Marmesha, Marmekona, Marme Tonga. The Marme Tonga, Marme Seji, Sheda Gorda, Koran Tonga, Marme Toya Todalia, Del Noa Sheda Goya, or Chisarotina, Marme Koran Sa, she would do us. But didn't Shiba de Rani is Shiba. Rodizia do it set and Marine saw this. La Tela da Oma was in Mama Rangla saw she maris. Mama Rangla saw she in a Mumba Mumbes. Deva she is. Did you not? Mumba Mumba did not carry. Motor attack give me a several. Tell me a several.
So now we are looking at the stanza, what is it? 18, the last two lines of stanza 18, which has to do with Chitta Matrins. So they are presenting an example, like to illustrate cognition, Rangri. And the example given is that of marmite, like a flame of a butter lamp, or maybe the light, we can use it, right, marmite. And so what they're saying is that in the flame of the butter lamp, it illuminates itself. You don't need another torch to illuminate the flame, because it illuminates itself, right? And you can see the flame. So like that, that's it. There is a self-cognition. It is as if it perceives itself, illuminates itself, right? That's the example Chitta Martin is presenting it, you know. And so Madam Beacon is saying, like, well, that is not working, right? There is no such thing as flame of a lamp illuminating itself. There's no need for that, you know. If you say that, then you also have to say that the darkness obscures the darkness itself, right? So in which case, then we cannot see darkness, right? If the darkness obscures the darkness, then we are not going to see the darkness, you know. So now we are refuting the example presented by the Chitta Martins here.
What is the Mama said, say, go in the she said, go to see to me to do this. Young say, tell us, you can talk to the shadow.
Seems a bit sense.
Oh, no, tell us, you Manuela says, you tell us, you can say, put talk to the shadow. To me, shadow.
No.
To me, do the shadow.
The game, Umabe Palago, some of the Sula. No. So what the mathematicians are telling Chitta Martin is that self-illumination of a flame of a butter lamp is not working, right? If you assert such thing, then we would have to end up endless assertion of self-illumination, right? Whatever self-illuminated, there has to be another that's self-illuminated. So it becomes a very endless endeavor with that.
Because even she so come took dance. Young Shogama Tag is wrong to penny. He did he good is she Pungukarbo. Nobody know no one. She real thing to Shabon. So the children, W. Genji said. No need no, here at the ninja. Rangu is Wombujava Mela. Bedre Wombo Yin Rangu Niji Wombujava Inji. Tension at the way you are my base. Take you to Suzo Gashina Rang. hiện 대바 당 희바랑게 랑리바 미 리시 hiện 대바 메와야 통고 hiện 어디서다 근데들야 카니 요스다 근데 시고모지는 레마고모 가는 거 힌트도 뭐뭐 나죠 되는 나지 되는 거 미드야서도 그 방문의 정신이 이게 그 수도 체바지게 저 그런 정신 뭐뭐를 인가지 그래서 시바디 저다 수소도 미지 리자드 인게 로사는 이야기지 그 시바 그런 로사는 미드야 나이 그런 점점 그런 얘기고
So the last two lines of the stanza 19 again represents the Chitta Martins kind of response back. So what they are saying is with these examples is that there are two kinds of sort of perception, they said. So one is kind of other focus. It's dependent on other conditions. For example, if you have a crystal ball, right? If you put it on a blue color, it will have a blue appearance or red, whatever it is, right? So this kind of perception is other dependent because based upon other conditions, it becomes blue, red, yellow, whatever, right? Then there's other kind of a blueness, like the blue lapis lazuli. Well, that's mouthful to say. Let's change it to blue diamond. I like diamond. Okay. So that's not dependent on other conditions. Blue diamond is blue, right? In its nature, they said. So it's not other dependent blueness, So like that, we assert that the perception or cognition has two aspects, right? The other dependent one, which is the other focus externally, seeing the blue, and just like the blue diamond, which is blue by itself, so the perception sees itself. So that is what we call self-cognition, So they are different like that. This is what, again, Chitta Martins are coming back, right?
어디 다 이바디가 어디 그래서 이제 지문이 지진에 제비고 뭐 다니 이때바니 다니 시험이 뒤에서 다 물어야 돼 뭐뭐들 힘을 뜨고 말이야 되고 말이야 그래서 제가 시고 뭐뭐를 제 뭐뭐 제가 진행 되고 물어야 뭐뭐 따위지 intention 마도 그런 거 라시 뭐 라시스는 되게 말이지. 무지야 뭐뭐디 유제 뭐 소소는 뭐지. 그 다가서 뭐뭐디 소 말이지. 유제 뭐도 뭐뭐디 그 간호 뭐뭐디 소그라. 그 뭐뭐디 유제 유메 뭐뭐디도 탐지 뭐뭐디 내가지 주마상으로.
So what we will see in the next stanza 20 is the sort of Madhyamikans again responding to the Chitta Martins, where you claim that the blue lapis lazuli or diamond is blue on its own intrinsically. It's not other condition dependent, right? But that's not acceptable, right? They said the blueness of the diamond or lapis lazuli is also produced by causes and conditions. It is not intrinsically blue, right? If anything can be intrinsically blue, then everything can be blue. Why can't everything be blue? There is no need for causes and conditions, right? That's not what it is. So that example is not working, right? Where you said that the self-focus, right? The blue diamond is not working because that blue diamond is the result of many causes and conditions.
다들 이봐 동가보니 마음에서 강바 얘기때 텔 마음에 랑사 시메정 서와 시듯이 마음에 제신지 시베 시데 시람 마음에 랑 메세양 메세양 오버신 사 시도시 제신베 시베 시네 되게 주바시나 로는 랑사 샤니노시 로康시네 되게 주바 시베 Merik so. Lo je shin shiwa tume de je se joyo bara sa. Joyo ba gonga jinye ke de la. Rang shi so nyam na ti de ro ka bi me de la. Kang ge che rang xin ge jang shi ba tong wa me ne ti ki shi ba che ji se me ma zo ba te zhong zhu la te da na ti ki ju xiao ne me xiao xi ti ke wa la xue wa ne ki mo xian ji po me xin na ki ju mo xian ji po mo xian po mu jing ba te nam ju je ba to me ba xian du du ma ma ne ti ke ba xi ju jo to me ba ye do ke de lo je xian ji ma zo par chi ji lo ke la na shi ba ya rang ma zo ba o ma ba ju ye cai rang xian ge jang me do na te de shi ba se me ma zo te jong chi ro la ju na shi ba rang ma zo ba o ma ba ke la xi shi ba je xian ma zo ba ngo ma zo ba na yang jong zi da o ma ba zu go si nyam jong de sem za rang ge sa wa de tong go de rin we su cha mo to na ye we su ra ba tong go ba xian na ma chim de ringa zhi be se mi ji ze me lu bi zo le sa o de che bo ba so tong ya nyor me ran la su be mi ji ze yi tong a jo me wa xian no de na rin go to na ye go tong go ba ri ba te da de rang ri ge ju shi de me ru wa ma se rang ri yo wa ni ji du yang ju so mu si o de da de sem za ba de se wa sa kha sa sem za ba ge ta ring sa da de de su go to na ta nye sa su tong go ri si o de la ye ne de te jo de kya wa yo ma ri si ta nye se su mi chi tong go de me ta nye se me ko ro tong go ma ba si da ta nye sa ring sa tong na ta nye sa tong ye wa yo ma ri si o de so yo ma ri da hi ba ko rang ri tong ma ri si o de so mi do di kar sa de so sa ri ri su to de ye su to go ba xian no si xian de sen sa ba xie ta de le ya ri su to ta nye sa su to go ye wa yo ma me ge yang ri bu su to go de me ko rang tong go ma ri ba o tu su pa ga yi se.
So the next Chitta Martins or mind release school assert that if a cognition can see something that is at a distance, far off, then it should be able to see itself. Why can't it be? It sees something very far off, so why can't it see itself? Right? That's the Chitta Martins standpoint. And so the Madhyamikans are saying like, well, that's not necessarily the case. Eyes can see objects far off, but eyes don't see themselves, right? Eyes are closest to it, but so it doesn't work that way. If you say that something sees something far off, then it should be able to see itself. That's not necessarily the case.
ye tong tu xie be se tong du so yi tan ye ge me be ta bi xie na se de ra mi xi ge tong wa da 니히 퇴바도 이시소지 시바 타니들 나정인베 유유진 대다 늘 군조정이 가와샤 메데 데네 통도 시선 유지 거니죠 그때 제발 마도 bar 직대베 로hingi 이거 랑군이 주바 제베 데지 니 코에 두기 자람 줄주바 이베스 데버토바 티 르과양 양다게스 도자 이번 제베 싫어 타니디 나저게 수소들 가메고데 태탄기 두게메지징 자자만나야 타니드라 이세다 가와야 미니테 롱다 리베 고고나 노장지 롱르바 랑 가자 총베세다 가나양 다시 사지 태차지기 나샤 가양 조사베와 최다이디 저 동예비 싫어 대자 그 통도기 유수소 딘지 코에 따데 메시 틱메 파파장 데메토 바라서 소아데바이 송스 고테다 가지 데레야 다자 통도 유사데 들어가 그래서 메세야데 노하다도 메세가 뭐 제가 통장 통지도 뭐도 리자리지 메세 이 텐주가 세요 말이스 통장 통지 들어가가 랑원도 잡았어야 나랑시 저 대구고요리스 대구 뭐 제다지도 되는 유고보다 뭔지 미시데 되게 유시 나샤서 미레스고 말이 티테그리스 랑생이 좋아 랑원도 잡아 티테그 말이 다다 가야 티테그
So Madhyamegans or middle way philosophers are telling the Jetamartrins that what we are trying to refute here is the true existence or intrinsic existence, right? We are not saying that nothing exists at all because, I mean, forms exist, sound exists, right? There are perceptions. What we're saying is that things appear to exist in one way to our perception and they exist in another way. Right? They may appear to us as truly existent, but that's not how they exist. But are they existent? Yes. So we are not refuting the existence of all things. We are refuting, the true existence or the intrinsic existence.
What did that? Because what did you don't make a mistake? You don't know the rosy you care what to say. That's someone Similar Jumatin the Hindi Judy Meva Gabonis. Similar, she's a combo took it this. Sense of Nari, Suzoji, she told the Suva, that no, that you told the Majobi. No, she was similar Jumata Suzo, the mention. 말 건스 신이 규만나 티제 거시 거기도 시 나그 생다 시 수소 제시 멤버라지 데버 주나 된점 지적이 졸라 티다시나 타지 데미지 지적이 졸고베세 더 통사 통시지 미루와 졸시 오마비 조조와 Punga dene, ni zeshi member dembe zeji diya tagu shena suso debe ngubur jona nawa dali degola te dan suso shiru tu nawa yang nawa dali dembe shedan semza be zeshi mende ingubur zeshi mende ingubur jode 이거 저저 수소지 시를 통 주베 동고보다 나기 생이 다 되비 싫어서 어디다 수치도 수소되다 너 시바지 되고 롱시로 제시 베드 예 소소의 시로 내가 돈 앞에서 파셔야지 너 시바사야지 시제 얘기되어지로
No.
근데 그 준사코로 가서 그 뭐지 이게 노바타지 비례샤도 말이지 로즈 비지다 쇼지나시 카가샤고 뭐지 샤도 말이지
Al'umma bai kala do. So Madhyamikins are telling Chitamatrins that we cannot assert that objects and perceivers are of the same entity or nature. They have to be, accepted as different. So as Krishna says, just like because the perceptions are in the nature of experience, isn't it? Whereas objects are not in the nature of experience over there, and so these two things cannot have the same nature or entityness. It's just like we're talking about two different individuals, right? Lejin and Chojin. Lejin and Chojin are two different people. They are not same. So like that, such an object cannot be of the same entityness, right? That's what the Madhyamikins are telling them.
Okay, the God because you send the Sinju to me, you see me the Sigo, you the Demacho Missy, send the Demacho in Sigo, that tell you, could do ya medium telemody, sit down, you may also this way.
So where Madhyamikins and Chitamatrins differ are that Chitamatrins are saying that cognitions or perceptions are truly existent, whereas Madhyamikins are saying that all phenomena, object or subject, are non-truly existent, right? And Madhyamikins are not saying that nothing exists at all, right? They do accept subject and object, but they're saying there are no truly existent anything. So that's the point of contention or debate between two schools of thought.
Dan 대다게 통주소 유수자소 렌즈코에 자와 때문에 등매파고 장 내면도 세와 때문에 인성 대다데 근데 지도주다 뭐시다天주로시는 파바에 내면도 채워서 왔다天주에 파바 내면도 채워 말아 그래서 네가 다들天주 코로나 해당시 왔다 다른데 렌즈코에 자 될 투자도 시어지잖아 이 khoapan desiban gore desiban pang demeto gore tesa de nina dajaba khoapan siwa sera demeto ni chungju dengo arisi.
So what the Madhyamikins are saying, in the sense of like Prasangika Madhyamikins were saying, is that nothing is truly existent or tendu in Tibetan. Okay, so grasping at true existence is the root of samsara from Madhyamikan point of view. In order to uproot that, we have to realize the emptiness of true existence or non-true existence. That is the antidote, right? And so for Madhyamikans, if you are an Aryas or transcendental beings, then you should have realized the non-true existence or emptiness of true existence, and so that's why Madhyamikans say that even the Arahats or the Arahants of Sharvakas and the Patika Buddhas, they have realized the emptiness of true existence, right? That's Madhyamikan point of view. So that is the big, the standpoint, right? Why they are trying to refute. Again, tanda destroy the Uma Tingu Bachugo Shigo Real, Tanda Temba Kaza, dear again, Papa in that Temet of a chas, Uma Tingu, Prasangika Madhyamikans only. Yeah, not all Madhyamikans. Yeah, Prasangika Madhyamikans, right? Because I think 7th Madhyamikans down below, they accept true existence, the intrinsic existence, true existence is the same for the Prasangikas, right? All of them means the same thing. Right? Yeah. No, Sevatandika Madhyamikans and school below in the Buddhist schools of thought, they all said that in order to achieve nirvana or the get rid of all the afflicted emotions, one must realize the emptiness of self-sufficient and substantially existent person. They don't say you have to realize the emptiness of true existence, right? Whereas the person of Madhyamika can say, no, that's not good enough, right? To get rid of delusions, you have to realize the emptiness of true existence. So that's the difference.
That's Sumba Pekka, Sumba Simi Jumati, Tanghin, Yudimiva Gabane, Simile, so Ganga took things, Simzamanare, Suzo Shiriki Tony Chuba, Tarnana, Nawataki, Tony Majobe, no the best symbol, Jumata use Suzo Zeshe Mention, Markanze, Simi. Ma Simi Jumman Tizakonshi Kangaton, she Nangasenda, she Suzo, the same member, the better tuna, the dog in Jola, Titan Tadi Demi, ye, Jiggy Jogobes, tell a Tomza Tonji Mirum and Jorishi, Omobi Jojava, Puma Duene. The Geshe member there. They bet the chick do young. The chick do young, Metako Shena, Shena Suso, they bring over to no other do, then go la. Titan Suso, Shiri, told no young, no other did. Then be Shedana, similar Geshe Mende, Igor Jode. Suzo Shiri told the Jimmy Shiri, Mobotam. Now, Simni, Senyata Devi Shiru, that did because certainly, short of the semi Dani said, take Maris, what is that? The Tamzata Suzo the Shiru, you part of the years. And he was at Eugene the Bajiris. Tinico and the long thing was never in Zizi in the changing to this. China, you just take my you just need what is that? That the Zizi in the Koyi sold the Mikini because it's Zizi in the race. That the next is Zizi in the
No, sir. So Madhyamikans are, telling Chitamatrins that objects exist externally and the subject or perceptions exist internally, right, in terms of experience. Now, these are two different things. So that's why we can talk about subject and object and the act of perceiving something else, right, because of this subject-object difference, duality. But when you assert that cognitions are truly existent, and these truly existent cognitions are perceiving objects, right, then the object and these two, as you assert, are of the same nature. If something is truly existent as same entity, then they cannot be separated from each other. They have to be just identical. They have to be just one. If they are identically one, then how can we talk about perceiver and perceived? That's not possible at all, right? That's what the Madhyamikans are telling them. So we will stop there because we have to do sok, so we will do a short dedication prayers, and 5 minutes maybe break, and then those who do not need to do the talk, so you convenient for you to go, right? We need to leave. So we have a lot of prayer requests. I think we will do that at the sock offering, right? We will pray for them as well. Chanjo, Semjo, Rembo, Maje, Pana, Jeju, Jewa, Nyamba, Meba, Kone, Kondo, Peva, Sho, Dongye, Dawa, Rembo, Maje, Pana, Jeju, Jewa, Nyamba, Meba, Kone Kondon Pewa Sho Sa Shi Peshin Joshi Medo Cha Rira Lingshi Ninde Genpa Ti Sanje Shindo Mede Wiwa Yi Dogen Nanda Shingla Jeba Sho Kari Rabe Korwe Shingamde Pendan Tewa Malu Jungwe Chenre Siwan Tenzin Gyeltsen Shabe Sidi Bado Tenyo Ji Idam Guru Rana Mandela Ga Niya Daya Min Gyawa Gundo Yangda Lama Dan Deme Sheye Bela Longje Sada Lamje Yunde Rabzo Doje Shangi Ngoba Nyundo Show 5 minutes